So, sis, I know right now your pain may feel like it was random, right? But I'm here to tell you that it wasn't. It never is. It actually is your blueprint. And I'm going to prove it to you in today's video. But before we get into this episode, the question I want to ask you, that I want you to ask yourself and answer honestly, is are you going to keep bleeding or are you ready to start building? Okay? So, we're going to get into this episode today, which I've titled How to Turn Pain into Profit Without Selling Your Soul or Your Sanity. Okay? We don't need to do that. Now, what I need you to know is that your greatest heartbreak, even though it doesn't feel like it right now or in the moment, you grow through what you go through. So, even your greatest heartbreak, hear me, can be your greatest harvest. Okay? Your business does not have to feel like betrayal. It actually can be your biggest breakthrough without all the burnout. And if you are operating from a healed place, you don't have to hustle. Okay? So, I don't know how much you know about me and my story, even though I've shared it quite a few times here. Whether you're new to me or true to me, welcome or welcome back. Katrina Marie here, by the way, also known as the Boss Chick Biz Coach and your fearless legacy leader. I'm also a freedom strategist, along with being a holistic business coach and an RN health and wellness educator. And so, before I started doing this work, I worked in corporate America for 30 long years. Okay. 30. Yes, I know. Every time I say that, I can't believe it. Job hopping, job hopping, job hopping all throughout my career, girl. About a year on average, okay, 2 at most, have I ever stayed at a job. 25 of those years were spent in healthcare as a registered nurse, as a clinician, okay, working in a variety of settings, not just at the bedside, in some very traditional and non-traditional roles, particularly for nursing, and leadership for 20 plus years. And then towards the end of my career in the workforce, I dabbled into and really started getting heavily involved in the community, doing community work, but also doing coaching and consulting. So it was a natural transition for me. And to no surprise that before I started doing this work, I was already kind of doing that kind of work, to include running my own business as a legal nurse consultant. And I do have an HR background as well as a legal background and a business background as well as in healthcare. Okay, so as you can hear, my experience is pretty well diverse, right? So, but I left the workforce at the peak of my career. All right, I was making 6 figures. Yes, I had the corner office. Okay, I had all the perks and the bonuses and the benefits and all the things that many of us dream of. That ideal dream job, right? But no matter what, for me, I just was never truly happy. Like deep inside, I just never could feel fully fulfilled. It was like a high that I would have that was short-lived and then it would die down. Every time I would get a new job, I was excited, I was thrilled. Sometimes I just had to get a job to get a job to pay the bills. But most times I was very strategic and I can pretty much land any job that I wanted and ask for any money, amount of money that I wanted, and I would get it. So I never had an issue with finding a job, right? Or necessarily keeping a job, but I kept job hopping because I was really soul searching. And I realized at some point that I was never going to be happy because corporate could never offer me what was already internally inside that God gave me, my God-given gifts and talents, right? So I had a high 6-figure salary, and at the peak of my career, I decided to start a business in exchange for my freedom. I wanted out. Okay? Am I talking to you? Can you feel that? Have you been there? You know what I mean? So I started my own online coaching and consulting company back in 2016. That's when Shared Visions by Katwa was born. And I did it because there were a lot of women I was talking to, before I started this business, who were really where I was. emotionally, mentally, physically, just triggered by corporate. And at the particular time when I started, I was living back east. I had moved from SoCal to back east, actually in Atlanta specifically. And I thought I moved back to, Wakanda forever, land of the free, home of the brave, all the opportunities, especially for women of color. And even with all of my years of experience, even with my 3 degrees, even with all of the accolades and the certifications and the numerous, all the things, I could not find work. I kept being rejected, and I had gotten to a point where I was so over feeling like I was begging anybody for a damn thing. Okay. Katrina Marie don't beg. So I decided in that moment I was going to create my own opportunity. I'm not looking for a handout, and I'm not waiting for an opportunity to come or to be given to me. And that was my attitude. And that's how Shared Visions in short was born. Okay. So I started this business because I wanted to teach other women how to transition out of corporate like I did, and how to start a business that they could use as a vehicle really to change their economic status and their trajectory. Okay, that's really how it began. But I got burned out building the business, because I was building the business or building my life around the business instead of my business around my life. Big no-no. I learned the hard way. What I really wanted, what I really was looking for, what I later learned was that I could have, and what I really desired was holistic success. So in 2020, when the devastation of our nation happened, COVID-19 pandemic, I experienced what I call the dreaded D's. Now, I'm not going to go through all of that here because I have told this story a number of times. In fact, you can go back to any of the replays to my live stream show, the Resuscitation Room. I did a live stream show back when, sometime last year, over a series of like 3 months or so, 3 to 4 months. And I share that story a number of times. So if you want to deep dive into that part of my journey, you can. But I'm not going to go into that here for the sake of time, because I want to get to the other parts and pieces of why I'm doing this video today. Okay, so I don't want to get too far off track. So COVID-19 had happened, and I made a decision to pivot. We're just sitting at home, we're isolated, we're mandated, right, to socially isolate. We have nothing but time now. And so I had a lot of time to think about where I really was in life, where I was in business, my relationship, just things going on that I hadn't foreseen. I didn't think would turn out the way it did, just unforeseen circumstances that were, to some degree, a lot of it out of my control, and then, not all my decision, right? And yes, I played a part in a part of my demise in my relationship, of course, because it takes 2 to tangle, right? 2 to make it or break it. So it was a very sad time for me, and I was unhappy, and I was going through bouts of depression, and I was feeling a lot of anxiety around all of this, and I was literally having a nervous breakdown, and the list goes on. And so, and I was also having a very dry season in business. I'll throw that in there. That was a part of my dreaded D's, okay? And I was in insurmountable debt. So that's just kind of a quick rundown. There was more, okay? And then there's more. But that was pretty much like the gist of it. So I decided in that moment, I've got to do things differently. So I did. And I pivoted to become a holistic business coach, an RN health and wellness educator, and a freedom strategist, instead of just a career transition coach and startup business expert, which is what at the time I was considering myself to be. Because I had learned in the process, so this is like the 3rd iteration of my business, by the way. And like I said, you grow through what you go through. And so after I had that experience, those tumultuous times that I lived for the time that I did in 2020, I decided this ain't the business, okay? This is not how I want my life to play out. I want the rest of my life to be the best of my life, and this ain't it. So how can I achieve it? And so I did a lot of work, a lot of internal healing. And I created frameworks around my healing because I was flatlining. Can you relate? Flatlining in all areas, all these areas of my life, not to mention a demise in my decline, rather, in my health. And I'm somebody who has always been very healthy, very self-aware, very health conscious, eating heart healthy foods, moving my body, stretching, exercising, all the things. I've done it. Healthy and wealthy lifestyle. That's me. I am a walking billboard of health, typically. But at this time, my body was breaking down. Okay. So I was flatlining and I needed to resuscitate, like I needed a resuscitation. I had to resuscitate myself, my life, and my legacy, and my business, right? Because my business was a part of my legacy. I had to be the one to do it because nobody was coming to save me. And even if they could, they didn't have the skills, right? They didn't know what I needed, but I knew what I needed. So I started to frame my frameworks around what's just happens to be so in alignment with the work that I do as a nurse. So my legacy ladder framework came from working in corporate. That's like housing, that's like the umbrella framework that houses two separate frameworks or methods or formulas, if you want to call them that. My secret sauce to success, which is my CPR and AED frameworks, which is fitting for a nurse, right? So I knew that I had to not only resuscitate my life, but that of the women that I was working with and that I was on the phone with, call after call after call, running in the same circles as these very women who look successful on paper, and on the outside, they look very successful. And we don't mind putting our, public successes out there, but we don't want to talk about our private failures, like what's really going down in the background, right? So I came to learn in my conversations with all of these different women I was having conversations with, that we are all going through something similar. And I wanted to create a safe, sacred space, a sanctuary, if you will, so that we could have the ability to talk about these things out loud, these conversations that we were all craving to have, but we're too ashamed to admit out loud. I wanted to create normalcy around these conversations in a safe space for women to be able to congregate and, like I said, form community and sisterhood. And so I started teaching not just high achieving women, type A personalities, overachievers, the type, you might be one, right? I definitely am a recovering workaholic, a recovering solopreneur, a recovering type A personality. Well, I'll probably still am that, still kind of in the recovering phase of some of those things. Definitely a high achiever, but working with other high achieving women over 40, because now I'm in my 50s. So women over 40 who I can totally relate to, and they resonate with me very deeply. And a lot of the same and similar things that we experience in life, right? Especially coming from, being Gen Xers, sandwich generation, right? Caught between our aging and maybe even ill family, aging parents, as well as our children, adult children, right? And then there's us. So, and then there's life. So I work with women now who are over 40, women of color and women who are of the LGBTQ plus community, teaching them how to do the same thing, how to use their story as their blueprint. Okay, and that's what this is leading into. So your story is your brand. Your story is your brand. Okay, your brand is your blueprint, or your story is your brand, is your blueprint. It's all interconnected, because authentic branding and your authentic voice over manufactured imaging or a manufactured image of you is always going to win. It will position you as a real expert, as someone who can truly be trusted and liked. That's important in business, okay? Pain can be and is our greatest teacher, but the real transformation is in your healing. Because it is my belief and it is my philosophy that in order to expedite our external success, the things that we want out there has nothing to do with what we have inside of us. So we have to do the internal work first, right? We have to heal all the parts and pieces of us to make ourselves whole again and feel happy inside. That starts inside, and that starts with a decision, but it also starts with the hard work. And so does the mindset work, so you can stop feeling like an imposter, which, by the way, imposter syndrome is a scam. I have a whole ebook that I did about that alone, okay? In case you're interested. It's a real thing. And who better to know if it's a real diagnosis than me, yours truly, a nurse, right? It is nowhere to be found in the DSM-5 manual that is specific to different uh, different diagnoses that has to do with mental illnesses, okay? Or, it's not going to be found anywhere. If you were to go to the doctor and they did an X-ray or MRI or CT scan or any of those diagnostics, honey, they are not going to find imposter syndrome. I'm just saying. It's a scam. Okay, I digress. So pain is your greatest teacher, but transformation is your real, or healing is your real transformation. Make sure I don't have, okay, might have a little bit of battery left. I forgot my charger over here. So anyways, I want you to know that you can make money and you can also honor your mission at the same time. You don't have to choose one or the other, okay? Your gifts deserve to be monetized ethically. And I'll get into what I mean by that. But first, I want to say this. If you're tired of watching everybody else talk about your pain, better yet, getting paid to talk about your pain, okay? It's time to reclaim your own narrative and share your own story. Your sob sad story to your success story. Now, let me give you the definition of what I mean by ethical profit. I mean that ethical profit is revenue that is earned with and in integrity and alignment with your values. Okay? I'm going to say that again. Ethical profit is revenue that is earned in integrity and in alignment with your values. Okay? And here's a warning I have for you. If the business you're building is making you sick and or sad, it's not the business, babe. Okay? It's the blueprint. I promise you. Trust me on that. But the good news is that that's an easy fix. Okay? Now, if you're getting what I'm giving and you love these gems I'm dropping, go ahead and leave a comment right now so we can get this discussion popping. I would love to know before we get into action, because you know I love radical action, okay? And if you don't know that, you're going to learn today. I love to get into radical action. I'm about taking action because leaders take action. We're fast action takers. We're solid decision makers. So before we get into the next steps of what you can do and what action you can take, I want to continue the dialogue beyond this video. So go ahead and leave a comment below and let me know what's hitting home with you. And if you're feeling my vibes and you love this episode, go ahead and peruse around my page if you hadn't already and check me out and see what else is applicable to where you are in the journey right now. Subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode whenever I drop new content and or go live. Okay? Thank you. Now, what can we do? What do we do next? Because I always want to leave you with action steps because we really already know what the problems are. We don't necessarily know the why or the rationale behind them. And we sometimes feel alone in the journey because it can be a lonely road. Entrepreneurship, right? The road to becoming not just a business owner, but really the CEO of your life, right? That's a big job. So, but what can we do? The first thing I want to say is that I always believe in reflection. Reflect. Sit still with yourself, just you and your thoughts in a quiet, still environment. Make it therapeutic, so that your emotions that come up for you, you can breathe through those and you can just feel safe. Reflect. You can reflect using a journal. You can reflect just in your thoughts, thinking about what's resurfacing, what part of your story keeps coming up, what's pulling on those heartstrings. And there's something about pen to paper. So I would advise to write it down as those thoughts come to you. So you can go back and look back on it as you grow through this. Okay. Then I want you to map out just three. That's not a lot to ask. Okay. 3 ways that you can help others avoid the pain that you are now or then experienced, that you experienced back when, or that you're experiencing now. What are 3 things you can do to help individuals who are going through something similar struggles like you, or things that they have an urgent need to solve? What are those things that you can help them with because you've been through it? You have lived experience. Okay. And then the next thing is to book a clarity call with me. Okay. Seriously, I want to help you build a brand that is truly aligned with who you are. And just for clarity, no pun intended, okay? But just for clarity, I want you to understand this is not a free coaching call, because for some reason people get that twisted. So I want to unconfuse you, okay? If that's what you thought. It is a clarity call, just like what it sounds like, right? It is a powerful 50 minutes. We're spending about an hour together on a soul aligned strategy session, okay? It is designed to help you reclaim your peace and your power and move you to higher grounds, to unimaginable heights, to your next level, right? What is the most aligned move, or the next best aligned move you need to make, and walk away with clarity and confidence to do it? That's what I help you with in a nutshell, okay? You're going to get a personalized game plan so that you can move forward. You're going to have clarity on what's keeping you stuck or holding you back, and we are going to have the opportunity to see if we're a match for each other, a match made in heaven, right? So if it's a fit and we decide in that moment that we want to work together, we can talk about the ways in which I could further support you on a deeper level, okay? And if not, it doesn't matter. It's no pressure either way. It's okay. If you decide not to move forward, you will still walk away with those items I just presented to you, okay? And if you do decide to, the cost of the call actually turns out to be free, because I will then apply the cost of the call, which is $222. Angel numbers. I did that intentionally. Everything I do is with intention. And that's the cost of the clarity call. And then you still get the information and the transformation that you will be able to start with the plan that you're going to implement, right? But if you decide to go ahead and work with me, then we will apply that as a credit to my Legacy Leaders Lab, if that's the program you decide to enroll in, okay? And it has to be, and we can get into the details, but it would be within a 14-day period, and you would have to pay in full in order to get that. Otherwise, I have other options like split payments and all that stuff, but we can get into the nitty-gritty of the investment and all of that later. But what's most important is that we have the conversation now, okay? Because you still will be able to have quick wins just by having a conversation with me on the clarity call, okay? So I just want to make sure if there's nothing else that I wanted to share with you. I think that was it for the most part. If I can think of anything else, I will leave it in the pinned comments. But what I will mostly leave in the pinned comments is most important is what we just talked about, and that's the link to the clarity call. It's also in the description box below, so check it out. Book your call. Get in where you fit in, okay? Because these calls, the seats that I have that are you can reserve rather for yourself are limited, and I'm not saying that just for FOMO. I'm honestly telling you that these are calls that book up pretty quickly. So there might be some scattered here and there. So just get in where you can. Okay. Now that's my time. I'm going to tune out while you tune in. Be sure to share this video out with at least 3 friends. That's a tongue twister. If you say it 3 times fast, I bet you can't. Be sure to share this video out with at least 3 friends and watch the next video that YouTube recommends. Okay. Now, if I have red lipstick on my teeth, y'all, because red lipstick is the worst, can you let a sister know? Because there's been a time or two in a video that I look back and I'm like, really? Now, who's going to really tell me where I can hear you, right? So I just need to make sure. But As always, and until next time, I am wholeheartedly in this journey with you. Bye for now. And what you see is what you get, okay? I am who I am, who I am. See you in the next video.